The California sun was brutal that September afternoon as chaos erupted inside Silverstone Estate, Napa Valley's most exclusive wedding venue. Inside the pristine kitchen, what should have been final preparations for a $500,000 wedding had become a complete disaster. Marcus Chen, the venue's head coordinator, stood frozen with his phone pressed against his ear, sweat dripping down his forehead despite the air conditioning running at full blast. At 32, Marcus had coordinated hundreds of high-end events, but nothing had prepared him for this. "What do you mean food poisoning?" he shouted into the phone. "Chef Rodriguez, you cannot cancel 4 hours before service." Through the kitchen's glass doors, Marcus could see the venue transforming into something magical. White silk drapes cascaded from 20-foot ceilings, thousands of white roses created archways leading to the ceremony space, and crystal chandeliers cast warm light over tables set for 400 of Silicon Valley's most powerful people. But behind the scenes, everything was falling apart. Marcus. Elena Vasquez, the venue's operations manager, burst through the kitchen doors with panic written across her face. "The backup catering company just called. They cannot handle an event this size with 4 hours' notice." Marcus felt his knees go weak. This was not just any wedding. This was the marriage of David Morrison, founder of 3 billion-dollar tech companies, to Sarah Chen, venture capitalist and daughter of one of the most influential families in California. The guest list read like a who's who of American power: tech CEOs, senators, movie stars, and at least 6 people who regularly appeared on magazine covers. "How bad is it really?" Marcus asked, though Elena's expression already told him everything. "Catastrophic," she replied without hesitation. "We have 4 hours until guests arrive, no chef, no catering team, and 400 people expecting the meal of their lives." The original plan had been flawless. Celebrity chef Miguel Rodriguez, fresh from winning his 3rd James Beard Award, was supposed to create a 7-course tasting menu featuring ingredients flown in from around the world. The couple had paid $200,000 just for the food service. "What are our options?" Marcus asked desperately. "Cancel the wedding and face lawsuits that will destroy this venue," Elena said bluntly, "or somehow perform a miracle in the next 4 hours." As if their conversation had summoned more bad news, James Walsh, the venue's assistant manager, appeared with yet another crisis. At 26, James was usually calm under pressure, but today his face was pale with stress. "Marcus, we have another problem," James announced. "The service staff is freaking out. Half of them are talking about leaving because they do not want to be part of a disaster that will end up in the news." Marcus looked around the empty kitchen that should have been buzzing with activity. Industrial-grade ovens sat cold and unused. Preparation tables that should have been covered with ingredients stood bare. The walk-in refrigerator, normally stocked with thousands of dollars worth of premium ingredients, contained only basic supplies. "This is going to be front-page news," Elena muttered. "Tech billionaire's wedding becomes disaster because venue could not deliver." The 3 of them stood in silence for a moment, the weight of the situation crushing down on them. Outside, they could hear the sounds of setup continuing, florists arranging final displays, musicians conducting sound checks, photographers testing equipment. Everyone was preparing for perfection except the people responsible for feeding 400 VIP guests. That was when they heard a quiet voice behind them. "Excuse me." All 3 turned around. Standing at the kitchen's service entrance was a woman who looked completely out of place in the pristine venue. She appeared to be in her late 40s, with silver-streaked brown hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. Her clothes, a faded denim jacket, worn jeans, and boots that had seen many miles, marked her as someone who clearly did not belong in a place where the cheapest bottle of wine cost $300. But there was something in her posture, something in the way she carried herself with quiet dignity despite her circumstances, that made them pause instead of immediately calling security. Elena stepped forward, her event coordinator training kicking in. "Ma'am, I am sorry, but this is a private venue, and we have a major event today." "I know," the woman interrupted gently, her voice carrying a slight accent that none of them could immediately place. "I could not help but hear your conversation. You need someone who can cook for 400 people in 4 hours." The three exchanged glances that ranged from confused to desperate. "Cook?" Marcus repeated slowly. "I heard you mention that your chef canceled and no catering company can help," the woman said calmly. "I can cook. I would be willing to help today, just in exchange for a meal." The silence that followed was broken by James's barely contained laughter. "Ma'am, do you understand what kind of event this is? We are not talking about a backyard barbecue." Elena stepped forward, her exhaustion making her tone sharper than intended. "With all respect, this is a $500,000 wedding for some of the most influential people in the country. The guests are expecting restaurant-quality cuisine from a James Beard Award winner." "I understand," the woman said, showing no offense at their skepticism. "But you are in trouble, and I have experience in professional kitchens." Marcus found himself studying her face more carefully. Despite her appearance, there was something about her calm confidence that seemed genuine. Her eyes, a clear blue-gray, held knowledge and depth that suggested she had seen more of the world than her current circumstances indicated. "What kind of experience?" Marcus heard himself asking. The woman hesitated for just a moment, as if choosing her words carefully. "I have worked in fine dining establishments. I understand timing, preparation, coordination under pressure." "What establishments?" Elena pressed. Again, that slight pause. "Various places over the years." James could not contain his skepticism. "Various places? Like what? Chain restaurants?" "I have experience with high-end cuisine," the woman replied simply. Before anyone could ask more questions, Marcus's phone rang. He answered it automatically, hoping against hope for good news. "Silverstone Estate, this is Marcus. I am calling because we are booked solid, but I wanted to warn you. Every quality catering company in Northern California is either booked or cannot handle an event that size with this notice. You are looking at food trucks or complete cancellation." When Marcus hung up, the kitchen fell silent again. "Food trucks," Elena repeated quietly. "For David Morrison's wedding." The woman who had been standing quietly through this conversation stepped forward. "I meant what I said. If you give me access to your kitchen and ingredients, I can prepare a meal that your guests will remember." "What would you make?" Marcus asked, surprising himself. Without hesitation, she replied, "For an event this size, I would suggest a progressive menu starting with small plates that can be prepared quickly but elegantly. Perhaps duck confit crostini with cherry gastrique, followed by seared scallops with cauliflower puree and pancetta. For the main course, herb-crusted lamb with seasonal vegetables and red wine reduction, and for dessert, individual chocolate soufflés with raspberry coulis." The kitchen fell completely silent. Elena's eyes widened. Those were not the words of someone who had learned cooking from fast food restaurants. "Where exactly did you learn to plan menus like that?" Elena asked carefully. The woman's eyes briefly showed something: pain, perhaps, or loss, before returning to their calm steadiness. "Experience teaches many things." Marcus looked at Elena, then at James, then back at the woman. They had two choices: trust a stranger who somehow knew advanced culinary terminology, or cancel the most important event in their venue's history. "What is your name?" he asked. "Sarah," she replied simply. "Sarah what?" "Just Sarah." Elena found herself studying Sarah's hands as she spoke. They were clean despite her circumstances, with long fingers that moved with subtle precision when she gestured. These were not the hands of someone who had never worked professionally. There were small scars, the kind every serious chef accumulated over years of knife work, and a particular callus on her right index finger that came from proper knife grip. "You know what?" Elena said suddenly, surprising everyone including herself. "What do we have to lose?" "Elena," Marcus started, "you cannot be serious." "I am completely serious. We are already failing. Our reputation is about to be destroyed anyway. What is the worst that could happen? She makes it worse?" James looked at Elena like she had lost her mind. "You want to let a homeless woman cook for David Morrison's wedding? I want to let someone who just demonstrated more culinary knowledge than half our usual catering staff try to save our careers," Elena shot back. Sarah spoke quietly. "I understand your hesitation. If you allow me to demonstrate, I can prepare something small. You can judge whether my skills match my words." "Demonstrate what?" James asked skeptically. "Give me access to your prep kitchen for 15 minutes. Let me make something that would typically be served as an appetizer. If it is not restaurant quality, I will leave immediately." Marcus looked around at his team. Elena was nodding slowly. James seemed skeptical but desperate. Through the kitchen windows, he could see vendors arriving with flowers, linens, and equipment for what was supposed to be a perfect day. 15 minutes, Marcus said finally. "But if this goes badly?" "It will not," Sarah said with quiet confidence. Elena led her into the prep kitchen, and the others followed. The space was a study in professional efficiency, stainless steel surfaces, commercial-grade equipment, and ingredients stored with precision. Sarah surveyed the prep kitchen with eyes that took in everything: the layout, the equipment, the organization of ingredients. She moved to the walk-in cooler without asking permission, emerging with items that seemed random to the watching staff: duck breast, honey, aged balsamic vinegar, microgreens, and what looked like expensive aged cheese. "What is she making?" James whispered to Elena. "I have no idea, but watch her knife work." Sarah had found a chef's knife, a good one, though not the custom blade a serious chef would typically prefer. She tested its balance, made a few practice motions, then began to work. What happened next made everyone in the kitchen stop what they were doing. Her knife moved like a surgical instrument. Paper-thin slices of duck breast, each exactly the same thickness. Brunoise cuts of shallots so perfect they looked machine-made. Microgreens trimmed with precision that would make a perfectionist chef weep with joy. "Holy!" James breathed, forgetting where he was. Sarah worked in complete silence, her movements economical and flowing. She seared the duck to perfect medium rare in less than 3 minutes, the timing so precise it was like watching a choreographed dance. While the meat rested, she created a gastrique with the honey and balsamic that filled the kitchen with an aroma so incredible that other venue staff started drifting toward the prep station. "Elena," whispered Marcus, "who the hell is this woman?" Elena did not answer. She was too busy watching Sarah plate 6 perfect appetizers in under 2 minutes. Each plate was identical, the duck arranged in a perfect fan, microgreens placed with tweezers, the gastrique dotted around the plate in a pattern that was both artistic and purposeful, finished with tiny shavings of what Elena now recognized as aged Parmigiano Reggiano. The final touch was a single drop of reduced balsamic, placed with such precision it looked like a piece of modern art. "Taste," Sarah said simply, stepping back from the plates. Elena picked up a fork and took a bite. Her eyes closed involuntarily. The flavors were perfectly balanced: the richness of the duck, the sweet tart complexity of the gastrique, the nutty bite of the cheese, all brought together with an expertise that spoke of decades of experience. "This is..." Elena started, then stopped. She looked up at Sarah with new eyes. "This is restaurant quality. This is better than restaurant quality." Marcus took a bite and his expression changed completely. "Where did you learn to cook like this?" Again, That pause. Here and there. James tried a piece and nearly dropped his fork. This is incredible. This is better than anything I have ever eaten. Because you are still learning, Sarah said gently, without condescension. You have good instincts, but technique comes with time. Elena was staring at her intently now. You did not learn this in a chain restaurant. You did not learn this in most restaurants. This is advanced technique. I have had good teachers. Who? Where? Sarah was already moving toward the main prep area. If you allow me, I can begin working on solutions for today's service. Time is becoming critical. Elena looked at Marcus, who looked at the perfect appetizers, then back at Sarah. What is your full name? Marcus asked. Just Sarah. Sarah, you are hired. Temporarily. For today only. Can you really handle cooking for 400 people? Yes. Can you do it in 4 hours? Yes. Can you do it without destroying our kitchen or our reputation? Sarah looked directly into Elena's eyes, and for a moment, Elena saw something there that made her breath catch. Intelligence, yes, but also a deep sadness, and underneath it all, a confidence that seemed to come from years of experience in situations exactly like this. I can do it, Sarah said quietly. Then do it. Sarah nodded once and began moving through the kitchen like she had worked there for years. She studied the available ingredients, assessed the equipment, and within minutes had begun organizing what would need to happen over the next 4 hours. First, we need to call your suppliers, she said. I will need additional proteins, specific vegetables, and several items that you probably do not stock regularly. Whatever you need, Marcus said. Second, I will need your service staff to understand the timing. Each course must be coordinated precisely. Done. Third, Sarah paused, looking around the kitchen. I will need to know if you have any dietary restrictions or allergies among your guests. Elena stared at her. You are already thinking like an executive chef. Sarah's expression flickered for just a moment. I am thinking like someone who wants your event to succeed. As Sarah began making lists and organizing the kitchen with professional efficiency, Elena found herself wondering who this woman really was. Because one thing was becoming very clear, whoever Sarah used to be, she was definitely not just someone who had learned to cook here and there. Sarah, Elena said carefully, I need to ask you something directly. What is it? Have you ever run a kitchen before? Sarah's hand stilled for just a moment on the notepad where she was writing preparation lists. When she looked up, Elena saw something flicker across her face, memory, loss, and something that might have been pride. Once, she said quietly. A long time ago. What happened over the next 4 hours was nothing short of miraculous. Sarah moved through the kitchen like a conductor leading a world-class orchestra, and somehow, impossibly, the chaos began to transform into precision. Within 30 minutes, she had the venue's entire culinary operation running like a machine that had been perfected over years. Marcus, I need you to contact these 3 suppliers immediately, Sarah said, handing him a list written in precise handwriting. Tell them this is for the Morrison wedding and that we need emergency delivery within 90 minutes. James, call your service staff back. Tell them we are going to save this wedding, and they are going to be part of something extraordinary. Elena, I need you to coordinate with the front of house. Service will begin exactly on schedule, but the flow will be different than originally planned. Elena looked at the detailed timeline Sarah had created in less than 20 minutes. It was more organized than plans she had seen from event coordinators with decades of experience. How do you know how to do this? Elena asked. Experience, Sarah replied, but she was already moving to the next task. When the suppliers arrived, Sarah inspected every ingredient with the eye of someone who had spent years evaluating quality. She rejected 3 items that looked perfect to everyone else, explaining defects that only an expert would notice. "This duck breast has been frozen too long," she told the confused delivery driver. "The texture will be wrong. Bring me fresh, never frozen. These microgreens were picked yesterday. For an event this important, I need today's harvest." Marcus watched in amazement as suppliers, people who usually treated venue coordinators like annoying obstacles, began treating Sarah with the respect typically reserved for celebrity chefs. "Yes, chef," the produce supplier said when Sarah requested a substitution. "We will have fresh items here in 30 minutes." When the service staff returned, Sarah addressed them like a seasoned leader. "Today, you are not just serving a meal," she told the group of 12 servers and bartenders. "You are delivering an experience that 400 people will remember for the rest of their lives. Each of you represents not just this venue, but excellence itself." The staff, who had been ready to abandon ship 2 hours earlier, listened with rapt attention. "The timing will be precise. When I call for service, you move immediately. When I say a course is ready, it leaves the kitchen within 60 seconds. Any questions?" There were no questions. There was something about Sarah's calm authority that made doubt seem impossible. As the first guests began arriving for the cocktail hour, Sarah was putting finishing touches on appetizers that looked like they belonged in a magazine. "First course ready for service," she announced. The servers moved like a ballet troupe, carrying trays of duck confit crostini that guests would later describe as transcendent. Within minutes, servers were returning with empty trays and reports that guests were asking who the chef was. "They want to meet you," Elena told Sarah excitedly. "No," Sarah said firmly. "Tonight is about the couple and their celebration. I am just here to cook." But as the evening progressed, it became impossible to ignore that something extraordinary was happening. Course after course left the kitchen with flawless presentation and perfect timing. The seared scallops were described by one food critic in attendance as restaurant-quality perfection. The lamb was so perfectly prepared that David Morrison himself sent word to the kitchen asking for the chef's contact information. "Sarah," Marcus said during a brief quiet moment, "this is the best event this venue has ever hosted. The guests are saying it is the best wedding food they have ever experienced." Sarah was already preparing the next course. "Good. That is what they deserve. But how are you doing this? For hours ago you were asking for a meal in exchange for cooking. Now you are running this kitchen like you own it." Sarah's hands never stopped moving as she plated the final main courses. Sometimes life gives you a chance to remember who you used to be. Elena appeared at Sarah's elbow. "We have a problem." "What kind of problem?" "The good kind. 3 people have asked me for your catering company's business card. One of them is planning a tech conference for 2,000 people next month." Sarah looked up from her work for the first time in hours. "What did you tell them?" "That I would ask you." For a moment, Sarah's composure wavered. Elena saw something flicker across her face, hope mixed with fear, possibility mixed with pain. Sarah started, then stopped. She looked around the kitchen, at the perfect service happening around her, at the team that had come together under her leadership. "I am not ready for that." "Sarah," Elena said gently, "whoever you were before, whatever happened to you, you are clearly meant to be cooking at this level." Sarah turned back to her plating, but Elena could see her hands were shaking slightly. "Sometimes who you were and who you are now are very different people," Sarah said quietly. As the evening reached its crescendo with the dessert course, individual chocolate soufflés that rose perfectly and melted on the tongue like dreams, Elena found herself watching Sarah with growing fascination. This was not just someone with natural talent. This was someone with years of high-level experience, someone who understood not just cooking but the psychology of service, the coordination of teams, the precise timing that separated good events from legendary ones. When the last dessert was served and the guests moved to the after-party, Sarah began cleaning her station with the same precision she had applied to everything else. "Where are you going?" Elena asked. "My work here is finished." "Sarah, wait." Marcus approached with an envelope in his hand. "We cannot let you leave without proper payment." "We agreed on a meal," Sarah said. "I am not looking for charity." "This is not charity. This is payment for services that saved our reputation and created something beautiful." Sarah stared at the envelope for a long moment. Finally, she took it, but Elena could see conflict in her eyes. "There is something else," Elena said. "I meant what I said about the catering inquiries. If you are interested, I could help you connect with clients who would pay very well for this level of skill." "I told you, I am not ready." "Then when will you be ready?" Sarah was quiet for a long moment, looking around the kitchen that she had commanded so expertly for the past 6 hours. "I do not know," she said finally. "Maybe never." As Sarah prepared to leave, Elena made a decision that would change everything. "Sarah, before you go, I need to tell you something. What you did tonight was not just cooking. It was artistry. And I have been in this business for 15 years. I know the difference between someone who is talented and someone who is truly exceptional." Sarah stopped walking but did not turn around. "I do not know what brought you to our kitchen today, or what you have been through," Elena continued. "But I know that someone with your skills should not be asking for meals in exchange for work. Something happened to you, something that took you away from professional kitchens. Am I right?" Sarah's shoulders tensed, but she remained silent. "Whatever it was, it does not change what I saw tonight. You belong in professional kitchens, Sarah. You belong at the top of this industry." When Sarah finally turned around, Elena could see tears forming in her eyes. "You do not understand," Sarah said quietly. "Some bridges cannot be rebuilt. Some falls are too far to recover from." "What if you were wrong?" Elena asked. "What if tonight was not just an accident, but a chance?" Sarah wiped her eyes and managed a small smile. "Thank you for letting me cook. It has been a long time since I felt useful." As Sarah walked out of the kitchen and into the night, Elena stood watching until she disappeared. Something told her this was not the last time they would see each other. Because Elena recognized something in Sarah's eyes that went beyond skill or talent. She had seen the look of someone who had once stood at the top of their profession, someone who understood excellence not as a goal but as a standard. The question was, what had happened to take her away from that world, and was tonight the beginning of her journey back? The next morning, Elena arrived at Silverstone Estate earlier than usual, her mind still spinning from the previous night's events. The Morrison wedding had ended with standing ovations, literally. Guests had applauded the dessert course, something Elena had never witnessed in 12 years of event coordination. But Sarah had vanished. After the last guest departed and the venue was cleaned, Elena had turned to thank their mysterious savior, only to find that she had slipped away as quietly as she had arrived. The only evidence of her presence was a perfectly organized kitchen and a small note written on prep paper, "Thank you for the opportunity. S." Marcus was already in his office when Elena arrived, staring at that note like it might reveal its secrets. "Have you figured it out yet?" Elena asked. "Figured what out?" "Who she really is. Because that was not just some talented homeless woman, Elena. Nobody works like that without serious professional training." Marcus looked up from the note, his expression troubled. "I have been thinking about it all night. Her knife work, her technique, the way she coordinated the entire kitchen. Elena, I have worked with James Beard winners who could not do what she did last night. And the way she talked about food," Elena added. The terminology she used, the techniques she mentioned, that was culinary school vocabulary. Advanced culinary school. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of James, who looked tired but energized from the previous night's success. "Is Sarah coming in today?" James asked immediately. "Because I want to learn that sauce technique she showed me." "We do not know," Elena admitted. "She left without saying where she was staying or how to contact her." "She is probably sleeping under some bridge," James said, then immediately looked guilty. "Sorry, that came out wrong. But seriously, where does someone like that go after working in a place like this?" The question haunted all of them. Elena had spent half the night wondering the same thing. "I keep thinking about her hands," Elena said quietly. "Did any of you notice her hands? They had scars, but they were old scars. Professional scars. And that callus on her knife finger, that comes from decades of serious cooking. Plus she knew our equipment better than some of our own staff," James added. "She knew exactly where everything was after just looking around for 5 minutes." Their speculation was interrupted by the arrival of the morning deliveries, along with something unexpected. "Elena Rodriguez?" the delivery driver asked. "I have a special delivery for you." He handed her an envelope with the Silverstone estate address written in elegant handwriting. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a phone number and a brief message. "If you meant what you said about catering opportunities, I would like to discuss possibilities. Sarah." Elena stared at the note, her heart racing. She came back. "What do you mean?" Marcus asked. "She left this. She wants to talk about catering opportunities." James looked confused. "But she said she was not ready." "Maybe she changed her mind," Elena said, already reaching for her phone. The number rang twice before a familiar voice answered. "Hello? Sarah? This is Elena Rodriguez from Silverstone Estate." "Hello, Elena. I have been thinking about what you said last night. About catering opportunities? About second chances." Sarah's voice was quiet, uncertain. "I am not sure I'm ready, but I would like to try. Would it be possible to meet somewhere to discuss this?" Elena felt a surge of excitement. "Of course. When and where?" "There is a small diner called Mel's about 3 miles from your venue. I will be there at 2 o'clock this afternoon, if that works for you." "I will be there." After Elena hung up, the three of them stood in silence for a moment. "This could be big," Marcus said finally. "If she really has the background her skills suggest, and if we can help her get back into professional cooking, we could have access to one of the most talented chefs in the region," Elena finished. "Or," James added more cautiously, "we could be getting involved in something complicated. People do not end up homeless by accident. She clearly has a story, and it might not be a simple one." Elena knew James was right to be cautious. But something about Sarah, her dignity in difficult circumstances, her refusal to accept more than she had earned, the way she had transformed their crisis into triumph, made Elena believe this was worth the risk. At exactly 2 o'clock, Elena walked into Mel's diner and found Sarah sitting in a corner booth, nursing a cup of coffee. In the harsh fluorescent lighting, Sarah looked older than she had in the kitchen, and Elena could see the lines that stress and hardship had etched around her eyes. "Thank you for coming," Sarah said as Elena sat down across from her. "Thank you for reaching out." Sarah was quiet for a moment, staring into her coffee cup. "I need to be honest with you about something. Last night was the first time I had cooked professionally in over 3 years." 3 years? Elena tried to keep her expression neutral. "What happened 3 years ago?" Sarah's hands tightened around her coffee cup. "I lost everything. My restaurant, my reputation, my family. I made mistakes, and the consequences were severe." "What kind of mistakes?" "The kind that destroy careers and relationships." Sarah looked up, meeting Elena's eyes directly. I had a drinking problem. It cost me everything I had worked 20 years to build. Elena felt her heart sink, but also felt respect for Sarah's honesty. Are you sober now? 18 months, Sarah said. One day at a time. And you want to get back into professional cooking? I want to try. Last night reminded me who I used to be, before everything fell apart. For 6 hours, I felt like myself again. Elena studied Sarah's face, seeing both vulnerability and determination. What kind of restaurant did you have? Sarah hesitated. It was well regarded. We had recognition from James Beard, Michelin consideration, features in national magazines. But when I started drinking heavily, the quality suffered. Reviews became negative, staff left, investors pulled out. Within 18 months, everything was gone. And your family? Pain flickered across Sarah's face. My husband was my business partner. When the restaurant failed and I refused to get help for my drinking, he left. Took our daughter with him. I have not seen them in over 2 years. Elena felt a chill of understanding. This was not just about professional redemption, this was about Sarah trying to rebuild an entire life. Why do you want to try again now? Elena asked gently. Because last night showed me that I still have something to offer. For 3 years, I have believed that I was finished, that I had destroyed any chance of being useful again. But working in your kitchen, seeing that I could still create something beautiful, maybe I am not completely broken. Elena reached across the table and placed her hand over Sarah's. You are not broken. What you did last night was extraordinary. The question is, are you ready for the work it will take to rebuild? I do not know, Sarah said honestly. But I want to try. Elena made a decision that would change both of their lives. Then let's start small. We get catering requests that are too small for our usual partners, intimate dinners, corporate lunches, small events. Would you be interested in handling those? Sarah's eyes widened. You would trust me with your clients? After last night? Yes. But there will be conditions. What conditions? Complete honesty. If you are struggling with sobriety, you tell me immediately. If you feel overwhelmed, you ask for help. And you let me help you rebuild properly with contracts, insurance, all the business aspects you will need. Sarah was quiet for a long moment, and Elena could see her weighing the offer against her fears. Why would you do this for me? Sarah asked finally. Because I believe in second chances. And because I have never seen anyone cook like you did last night. That level of skill does not just disappear because someone made mistakes. Sarah wiped away a tear that had escaped despite her efforts to stay composed. I do not know how to thank you. Do not thank me yet. Prove to me and to yourself that you are ready to be great again. As they shook hands across the table, Elena felt like she was witnessing the first step of a remarkable comeback story. She had no idea just how remarkable Sarah's story would turn out to be. 2 weeks after their meeting at Mel's Diner, Sarah was standing in the kitchen of a tech startup's headquarters in Palo Alto, preparing lunch for 30 software engineers. It was a small job, corporate catering for a product launch meeting, but Sarah approached it with the same intensity she had brought to the Morrison wedding. Elena watched from the corner as Sarah directed the 2 assistants she had hired, coordinating timing and presentation with professional precision. In just 14 days, Sarah had handled 6 catering jobs, each one more successful than the last. Behind you, chef, called Maria, one of Sarah's assistants, carrying a tray of perfectly plated salmon. Elena Rodriguez? The delivery driver asked. I have a special delivery for you. He handed her an envelope with the Silverstone estate address written in elegant handwriting. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a phone number and a brief message. If you meant what you said about catering opportunities, I would like to discuss possibilities. Sarah. Elena stared at the note, her heart racing. She came back. What do you mean? Marcus asked. She left this. She wants to talk about catering opportunities. James looked confused. But she said she was not ready. Maybe she changed her mind, Elena said, already reaching for her phone. The number rang twice before a familiar voice answered. Hello? Sarah? This is Elena Rodriguez from Silverstone Estate. Hello, Elena. I have been thinking about what you said last night. About catering opportunities? About second chances. Sarah's voice was quiet, uncertain. I am not sure I'm ready, but I would like to try. Would it be possible to meet somewhere to discuss this? Elena felt a surge of excitement. Of course. When and where? There is a small diner called Mel's about 3 miles from your venue. I will be there at 2 o'clock this afternoon, if that works for you. I will be there. After Elena hung up, the three of them stood in silence for a moment. This could be big, Marcus said finally. If she really has the background her skills suggest, and if we can help her get back into professional cooking, we could have access to one of the most talented chefs in the region, Elena finished. Or, James added more cautiously, we could be getting involved in something complicated. People do not end up homeless by accident. She clearly has a story, and it might not be a simple one. Elena knew James was right to be cautious. But something about Sarah, her dignity in difficult circumstances, her refusal to accept more than she had earned, the way she had transformed their crisis into triumph, made Elena believe this was worth the risk. At exactly 2 o'clock, Elena walked into Mel's diner and found Sarah sitting in a corner booth, nursing a cup of coffee. In the harsh fluorescent lighting, Sarah looked older than she had in the kitchen, and Elena could see the lines that stress and hardship had etched around her eyes. Thank you for coming, Sarah said as Elena sat down across from her. Thank you for reaching out. Sarah was quiet for a moment, staring into her coffee cup. I need to be honest with you about something. Last night was the first time I had cooked professionally in over 3 years. 3 years? Elena tried to keep her expression neutral. What happened 3 years ago? Sarah's hands tightened around her coffee cup. I lost everything. My restaurant, my reputation, my family. I made mistakes, and the consequences were severe. What kind of mistakes? The kind that destroy careers and relationships. Sarah looked up, meeting Elena's eyes directly. I had a drinking problem. It cost me everything I had worked 20 years to build. Elena felt her heart sink, but also felt respect for Sarah's honesty. Are you sober now? 18 months, Sarah said. 1 day at a time. And you want to get back into professional cooking? I want to try. Last night reminded me who I used to be, before everything fell apart. For 6 hours, I felt like myself again. Elena studied Sarah's face, seeing both vulnerability and determination. What kind of restaurant did you have? Sarah hesitated. It was well regarded. We had recognition from James Beard, Michelin consideration, features in national magazines. But when I started drinking heavily, the quality suffered. Reviews became negative, staff left, investors pulled out. Within 18 months, everything was gone. And your family? Pain flickered across Sarah's face. My husband was my business partner. When the restaurant failed and I refused to get help for my drinking, he left. Took our daughter with him. I have not seen them in over 2 years. Elena felt a chill of understanding. This was not just about professional redemption, this was about Sarah trying to rebuild an entire life. Why do you want to try again now? Elena asked gently. Because last night showed me that I still have something to offer. For 3 years, I have believed that I was finished, that I had destroyed any chance of being useful again. But working in your kitchen, seeing that I could still create something beautiful, maybe I am not completely broken. Elena reached across the table and placed her hand over Sarah's. You are not broken. What you did last night was extraordinary. The question is, are you ready for the work it will take to rebuild? I do not know, Sarah said honestly. But I want to try. Elena made a decision that would change both of their lives. Then let's start small. We get catering requests that are too small for our usual partners, intimate dinners, corporate lunches, small events. Would you be interested in handling those? Sarah's eyes widened. You would trust me with your clients? After last night? Yes. But there will be conditions. What conditions? Complete honesty. If you are struggling with sobriety, you tell me immediately. If you feel overwhelmed, you ask for help. And you let me help you rebuild properly with contracts, insurance, all the business aspects you will need. Sarah was quiet for a long moment, and Elena could see her weighing the offer against her fears. Why would you do this for me? Sarah asked finally. Because I believe in second chances. And because I have never seen anyone cook like you did last night. That level of skill does not just disappear because someone made mistakes. Sarah wiped away a tear that had escaped despite her efforts to stay composed. I do not know how to thank you. Do not thank me yet. Prove to me and to yourself that you are ready to be great again. As they shook hands across the table, Elena felt like she was witnessing the first step of a remarkable comeback story. She had no idea just how remarkable Sarah's story would turn out to be. 2 weeks after their meeting at Mel's Diner, Sarah was standing in the kitchen of a tech startup's headquarters in Palo Alto, preparing lunch for 30 software engineers. It was a small job, corporate catering for a product launch meeting, but Sarah approached it with the same intensity she had brought to the Morrison wedding. Elena watched from the corner as Sarah directed the 2 assistants she had hired, coordinating timing and presentation with professional precision. In just 14 days, Sarah had handled 6 catering jobs, each one more successful than the last. Behind you, chef, called Maria, one of Sarah's assistants, carrying a tray of perfectly plated salmon. But neither of them realized that forces were already in motion that would soon make hiding impossible. Because in the food world, exceptional talent was difficult to keep secret, and Sarah's skills were about to attract attention from someone who had been looking for her for a very long time. The phone call came at 6:30 the next morning, waking Elena from a deep sleep. The number was local but unfamiliar. Elena Rodriguez? This is David Mitchell. I think you might be working with my ex-wife. Elena sat up in bed, instantly alert. David Mitchell, Sarah's ex-husband. The one who had taken their daughter and moved to Portland. How did you get my number? I have been tracking mentions of Sarah online for 2 years, David said, his voice tense. A food blogger posted about a mysterious caterer in Napa yesterday. The description matches Sarah's cooking style exactly. Is it her? Elena felt torn between protecting Sarah's privacy and dealing with what was clearly a desperate father. What makes you think it might be her? The techniques described in the blog post. Duck confit crostini with cherry gastrique, that was one of Sarah's signature appetizers at Meridian. The timing, the precision, the way the blogger described the coordination of service. I know how Sarah works. Elena could hear the pain in his voice, and something else, hope mixed with fear. Why are you looking for her? Elena asked carefully. Because our daughter asks about her every day. Because Emma deserves to know if her mother is getting her life together. And because, his voice broke slightly, because I never stopped loving her, even after everything that happened. Elena felt her heart ache for this family torn apart by addiction and circumstances. If it is Sarah, David continued, I need to know if she is sober. If she is stable. Emma has been through enough. I understand, Elena said. Can I call you back? I need to discuss this with my colleague. After they hung up, Elena sat in her bed staring at her phone. She had promised Sarah honesty, but she had also promised to protect her during this vulnerable time. An hour later, she was driving to the small apartment Sarah was renting in Napa, her mind racing with how to handle this situation. Sarah answered the door in work clothes, clearly preparing for another catering job. Elena? Is everything okay? You look like you have seen a ghost. Sarah, we need to talk. David called me this morning. Sarah's face went white. She stepped back from the door, sinking into a chair. How did he find me? Elena explained about the blogger, the online tracking, the connection David had made through Sarah's cooking style. He wants to know if you are sober and stable, Elena said gently. He wants to know if Emma can safely have contact with you. Sarah put her face in her hands. Emma. God, she must be so confused about why I disappeared. He said she asks about you every day. Sarah looked up, tears streaming down her face. I have been too ashamed to reach out. Too afraid that they were better off without me. Are they better off without you? I do not know. The woman they knew 3 years ago was unstable, unreliable, dangerous to be around. But the woman I am now... Sarah wiped her eyes. I hope I am different. Elena sat down across from Sarah. What do you want to do? I want to see my daughter more than anything in the world. But I am terrified of hurting her again. What if we arranged a meeting? Controlled, safe, with David present? Sarah was quiet for a long moment, wrestling with fear and hope. What if she does not want to see me? What if she hates me for leaving? What if she needs to see that you are okay? What if not knowing is hurting her more than the truth? Before Sarah could respond, Elena's phone rang. It was Marcus from the venue. Elena, we have a situation. There is a man here asking about Sarah. Says he is a food writer from San Francisco, wants to interview her about her comeback story. Should I tell him she is not here? Elena looked at Sarah, who had heard enough of the conversation to understand what was happening. Our time just ran out, Sarah said quietly. The story is going to come out whether we control it or not. Elena made a decision. Marcus, tell him Sarah will be there in an hour. She will speak with him, but only if he agrees to her conditions. Elena, what are you doing? Sarah asked. I am helping you take control of your narrative. If this story is going to be told, you should be the one telling it. Sarah stood up, pacing to the window. I am not ready for this. Sarah, you have been getting ready for this for 18 months of sobriety and 2 weeks of proving you can cook again. You are as ready as you will ever be. Sarah turned back to Elena. Will you stay with me during the interview? Of course. And will you call David back? Tell him I would like to see Emma. If he thinks it is safe. Elena felt a surge of pride for Sarah's courage. I will call him right now. An hour later, Sarah walked into Silverstone Estate wearing a clean chef's jacket and carrying herself with the dignity Elena had come to recognize as her signature. The food writer, a man named James Chen, was waiting in the private dining room with a digital recorder and notebook. Ms. Mitchell, he said, standing to shake her hand. Thank you for agreeing to speak with me. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to tell my story correctly, Sarah replied. For the next 2 hours, Sarah spoke honestly about her rise and fall, her addiction and recovery, and her slow journey back to professional cooking. She talked about the shame of public failure, the pain of losing her family, and the daily work of rebuilding her life one small step at a time. "Why did you choose to come back to cooking?" James asked. "Because cooking is not just what I do, it is who I am. For 3 years, I tried to convince myself that I could be someone else, someone without that passion. But denying who you are is another kind of death. What do you hope happens next?" Sarah looked at Elena, then back at James. "I hope to continue rebuilding. To prove that redemption is possible, that people can change, that mistakes do not have to be permanent. And I hope," her voice caught slightly, "I hope to be reunited with my daughter, if she wants that." When the interview ended, Sarah felt emotionally drained but also strangely liberated. For the first time in 3 years, she had told her complete story without shame or deception. As James packed up his recording equipment, Elena's phone buzzed with a text from David. "Emma and I will drive down this weekend. She wants to see her mom." Sarah read the message over Elena's shoulder and started crying again, but this time, they were tears of hope rather than despair. "What if I disappoint her again?" Sarah whispered. "What if you do not?" Elena replied. "What if this is the beginning of getting your family back?" That evening, as Sarah prepared for another catering job, she felt something she had not experienced in years, the possibility that her future might be brighter than her past. She had no idea that the interview she had just given would change everything, bringing not just her ex-husband and daughter back into her life, but attracting the attention of people who could offer her opportunities beyond her wildest dreams. The article appeared online 3 days later under the headline, "From Rock Bottom to Redemption, the Sarah Mitchell Story." Within hours, it had been shared thousands of times across social media platforms, picked up by major food blogs, and featured on the front page of several culinary websites. Elena was in her office when her phone started ringing non-stop. Call after call from reporters, food writers, and producers wanting to speak with Sarah. But it was the call from New York that changed everything. "Elena Rodriguez? This is Catherine Wells from the Today Show. We would like to feature Sarah Mitchell's story on our program next week. Is she available for an interview?" Elena stared at her phone in disbelief. "The Today Show?" "Our producers read James Chen's article this morning. Sarah's story is exactly the kind of inspiring comeback we love to feature. We would fly her to New York, put her up in a hotel, and give her a platform to share her journey with millions of viewers." After hanging up, Elena immediately drove to Sarah's apartment. She found Sarah sitting at her small kitchen table, staring at her laptop with a mixture of amazement and terror. "Elena, what is happening?" Sarah asked. "My email has over 200 messages. Restaurant owners wanting to hire me, publishers asking about cookbook deals, television producers wanting interviews." "The article went viral," Elena said, sitting down across from her. "Your story is resonating with people in a way I do not think anyone expected." Sarah scrolled through the messages, her hands shaking slightly. "Look at this one. It is from Marcus Samuelson. He wants to meet for coffee next time he is in California. And this one is from a producer at Food Network asking if I would consider doing a cooking show. How do you feel about all this attention?" Terrified, Sarah said honestly. 3 days ago, I was anonymous. Now people are calling me an inspiration and offering me opportunities one never thought I would see again." Elena's phone rang again. This time it was David. "Elena, I just saw the article. Emma read it too. She wants to talk to her mother tonight, if that is possible." Elena put the phone on speaker. "David, Sarah is here. Do you want to talk to her directly?" There was a long pause, then David's voice, softer now. "Sarah? Are you there?" "I am here," Sarah replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "Emma wants to video call with you tonight at 8 o'clock. Are you ready for that?" Sarah closed her eyes, taking a deep breath. "Yes. I have been ready for that for 2 years." Sarah. David's voice was thick with emotion. I read the article. I am proud of you for getting sober. I am proud of you for finding your way back. David, I am so sorry for everything I put you and Emma through. I know words cannot fix what I broke, but I am trying to become someone worthy of being Emma's mother again. We will see you soon. Emma cannot stop talking about seeing you cook again. After they hung up, Sarah and Elena sat in silence for several minutes. This is really happening, Sarah said finally. The Today Show, Food Network, my daughter wanting to see me. It feels too fast, too much. It feels overwhelming because you have been living small for 3 years, Elena said. But this level of opportunity, this is what someone with your talent deserves. What if I am not ready? What if I fail again? Elena leaned forward. Sarah, 3 weeks ago you saved a $500,000 wedding with 4 hours notice. You have handled every catering job perfectly. You have been sober for 18 months and you just gave an honest interview about your journey. If you are not ready now, when will you be? Sarah stood up and walked to her window, looking out at the Napa Valley vineyards stretching into the distance. There is something I have not told you, she said quietly. Before everything fell apart, before the drinking and the breakdown, I was working on opening a second restaurant. We had investors, a location in Los Angeles, plans for expansion. That was part of what drove me to drink, the pressure of maintaining perfection while building something bigger. What happened to those plans? They died with Meridian. But seeing all these opportunities now, reading these emails, it is bringing back those same feelings. The excitement, the ambition, but also the fear of not being enough. Elena joined Sarah at the window. What if you approach it differently this time? What if instead of trying to prove you are perfect, you just focus on being authentic? What do you mean? Your story resonates with people because it is real. You failed, you admitted it, you did the work to recover. That honesty is your strength, not a weakness. Sarah was quiet for a moment, processing this. So you think I should do the Today Show interview? I think you should do whatever feels true to who you are now. Not who you were 3 years ago, and not who you think you should be, but who you actually are. That evening, at exactly 8 o'clock, Sarah's laptop rang with an incoming video call. When she answered, she saw David's familiar face, and beside him, a girl who looked like a perfect combination of both parents but with Sarah's distinctive eyes. "Hi, Mom," Emma said, her voice shy but curious. Sarah started crying immediately. "Hi, baby. You are so beautiful. You got so tall. Dad showed me the article about you. Are you really going to be on TV?" "Maybe," Sarah said, wiping her tears. "But right now, I just want to talk to you. Tell me about school, about your friends, about everything I have missed." For the next hour, Sarah listened as Emma talked about 5th grade, her best friend Madison, her soccer team, and how she had been learning to cook with David. "Dad taught me to make your chocolate chip cookies," Emma said proudly. "The ones with the sea salt on top. Those were always your favorites," Sarah said, her heart breaking and healing simultaneously. "Will you teach me more recipes when I see you this weekend?" "If you want me to, I would love that more than anything." After the call ended, Sarah sat staring at her laptop screen, overwhelmed by emotion. "She wants to cook with me," she told Elena. "After everything I put her through, she still wants to learn from me." "Children forgive more easily than adults," Elena said. "The question is, can you forgive yourself?" Sarah looked at the pile of emails still waiting for responses, at the opportunities that represented everything she had once lost and thought she would never regain. "I want to try," she said finally. "I want to do the interviews, explore the opportunities, and see if I can build something good from all this attention. But I want to do it the right way this time." "What does the right way look like?" honest, sustainable, with people I trust supporting me. Sarah looked at Elena. Will you help me navigate this? I do not want to do it alone. Of course, Elena said. We will take it one step at a time. As Sarah began responding to emails and planning for her daughter's visit, she felt something she had not experienced in years, hope mixed with determination. The little girl who had once dreamed of being a chef, the young woman who had worked her way up through restaurant kitchens, and the recovering addict who had learned to take life one day at a time, all of these versions of herself were coming together into someone new. Someone who might just be ready to reclaim her place in the culinary world, but this time with wisdom earned through loss and recovery. The weekend that Emma and David visited changed everything. Sarah had spent 3 days preparing for their arrival, cleaning her small apartment obsessively and planning meals that would show Emma how much she had grown and changed. But when Saturday morning came and she saw her daughter stepping out of David's car, all her careful plans evaporated. Emma looked like the perfect combination of both parents, but with Sarah's intense blue-gray eyes and David's steady demeanor. She moved with the cautious confidence of an 11-year-old who had learned early that adults could disappoint you. Hi, Mom, Emma said, her voice careful but not cold. Hi, sweetheart, Sarah replied, kneeling down to Emma's eye level. Thank you for coming to see me. Can I hug you? Emma asked, and Sarah nodded, pulling her daughter close for the first time in over 2 years. David watched the reunion with tears in his eyes. Despite everything that had happened between them, seeing Sarah hold their daughter again felt like a piece of his world clicking back into place. Your apartment is smaller than our house, Emma observed with the brutal honesty of childhood as they walked inside. It is, Sarah agreed. But it is mine, and I keep it clean and safe. That is important to me now. Dad said you stopped drinking. I did. 18 months ago. It was the hardest thing I ever did, but also the most important. Emma nodded seriously. Good. Drinking made you scary. The honest statement hit Sarah like a physical blow, but she forced herself to respond calmly. You were right. I was scary when I was drinking. I am sorry you had to see me that way. Are you still scary now? Sarah looked at her daughter's earnest face and felt her heart break and heal simultaneously. I hope not, baby. I work very hard every day to be the kind of person you can feel safe around. David had been watching this exchange, and Sarah could see him evaluating every word, every response, looking for signs of the woman who had once screamed at him while their daughter hid in her bedroom. Should we cook something together? Sarah suggested. I remember you used to love helping in the kitchen. Emma's face lit up with the first genuine smile Sarah had seen. Can we make pasta? The kind with the sauce you used to make? Absolutely. For the next 2 hours, Sarah taught Emma how to make fresh pasta from scratch in her signature tomato sauce with fresh basil and garlic. As they worked side by side, Sarah felt muscle memories returning, the way Emma liked to stand on a step stool to reach the counter, how she always wanted to crack the eggs herself, her habit of tasting everything twice to make sure it was perfect. You are a natural chef, Sarah told Emma as she watched her daughter carefully roll out pasta dough. Your knife skills are already better than some adults I have worked with. Really? Emma beamed with pride. Really? You have good instincts and steady hands. Those are gifts you cannot teach. David watched from the kitchen doorway, amazed by the transformation in both his ex-wife and daughter. This was the Sarah he had fallen in love with years ago, patient, encouraging, completely focused on nurturing Emma's interests. Dad, look how thin I made the pasta. Emma called to him. Beautiful work, sweetheart, David said, joining them at the counter. It looks restaurant quality. As they sat down to eat the meal they had prepared together, Emma peppered Sarah with questions about her work, her recovery, and her plans for the future. Are you really going to be on TV? Emma asked between bites of pasta. I might be. Would that make you proud or embarrassed? Emma considered this seriously. Proud, but also nervous. What if people are mean to you? Some people might be mean, Sarah said honestly. When you make mistakes in public, some people never forget. But I have learned that I cannot control what other people think. I can only control how I live my life today. That is very smart, Emma said solemnly. After lunch, they walked through downtown Napa, stopping at a small bookstore where Emma picked out a cookbook for children. Will you help me make recipes from this when I come visit again? Emma asked. When you come visit again? Sarah repeated, hardly daring to hope. If that is okay with Dad, Emma said, looking at David. David met Sarah's eyes over Emma's head. I think we can arrange regular visits if Mom continues doing well. That evening, after Emma had fallen asleep in Sarah's bed, David and Sarah sat on her small balcony talking quietly. She seems happy, David observed. She seems cautious but hopeful, Sarah corrected. I do not blame her for being careful around me. Sarah, I need to ask you something directly. Okay. Are you stable? Really, truly stable? Because Emma has been through enough disappointment. Sarah was quiet for a moment, considering how to answer honestly. I am sober and I work my program every day. I have a sponsor, I go to meetings, and I have built a life that supports my recovery. But am I stable? I am learning to be. Every day I choose sobriety is a day I become more stable. What about all this attention? The interviews, the opportunities? Are you worried about the pressure? Terrified, Sarah admitted. But the difference is that now I have tools to handle fear and pressure. And I have people supporting me who will not let me isolate or make decisions from ego instead of wisdom. David nodded. Elena seems like a good friend. She saved my life by giving me a chance to cook again. I owe her everything. You do not owe her everything, Sarah. You did the work. You stayed sober, you rebuilt your skills, you showed up consistently. She gave you opportunities, but you earned them. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the sounds of the valley at night. David? Sarah said finally. Thank you for bringing Emma. Thank you for giving me this chance. Thank you for becoming someone I could trust with her again. The next morning, as David and Emma prepared to drive back to Portland, Emma hugged Sarah tightly. I love you, Mom, she whispered. I love you too, baby. More than all the stars in the sky. Will you call me this week? If Dad says it is okay, I will call you every day. After they left, Sarah sat in her apartment feeling emotionally drained but also more hopeful than she had felt in years. She had her daughter back, not completely, not without work and time and consistent proof of change, but she had her back. An hour later, Elena called. How did it go? Better than I dared to hope, Sarah said. She wants to see me again. David is willing to arrange regular visits. Sarah, that is wonderful news. And Elena? I have made a decision about all these opportunities. I want to pursue them. Carefully, with support, but I want to try. I am ready to be Sarah Mitchell again. What changed your mind? Cooking with Emma reminded me why I became a chef in the first place. It was never about fame or recognition, it was about creating something beautiful that brings people together. If I can use these opportunities to do that, and if I can show Emma that redemption is possible, then it is worth the risk. Elena smiled as she hung up the phone. She had a feeling that Sarah Mitchell's second act was going to be even more remarkable than her first. The Today Show appearance was scheduled for the following Tuesday morning, which gave Sarah exactly 4 days to prepare for what would become the most important interview of her career. Elena had arranged for a media consultant to work with Sarah on handling difficult questions, managing her messaging, and presenting herself authentically without being defensive. But as Monday evening arrived, Sarah was pacing her apartment like a caged animal. What if they ask about the breakdown video? Sarah asked for the 10th time. What if they show clips of me screaming at my staff? Then you acknowledge it honestly and talk about how you have grown since then, Elena replied patiently. Your story is about redemption, not perfection. Sarah's phone rang, and David's name appeared on the screen. Emma wants to talk to you, David said without preamble. She is nervous about you being on TV. When Emma's face appeared on the video call, Sarah could see worry in her daughter's eyes. Mom, what if people say mean things about you on the internet? Some people probably will, sweetheart. But I am doing this interview because I want to show other people who are struggling that it is possible to get better. Sometimes doing the right thing means accepting that some people will not understand. Will you be nervous? Very nervous. But do you know what will help me? What? Knowing that you and Dad are watching and cheering for me. That will make me brave. Emma smiled. I will watch with Dad and text you good luck messages. After the call ended, Sarah felt calmer than she had all day. Her daughter's support gave her strength she had not realized she needed. The next morning, Sarah flew to New York City for the first time since her professional collapse. As the plane descended into LaGuardia Airport, she looked out at the sprawling cityscape and remembered all the times she had flown into this same airport for culinary events, restaurant openings, and media appearances when Meridian was at its peak. The Today Show studios were exactly as intimidating as Sarah had expected. Producers rushed around with clipboards and headsets, cameras moved on tracks like mechanical dancers, and the energy was kinetic in a way that reminded Sarah of a high-end restaurant kitchen during peak service. Sarah Mitchell? A young producer approached her in the green room. I am Jessica, and I will be prepping you for the interview. You look nervous. I am terrified, Sarah admitted. Good. That means you care. The interview will be about 8 minutes. Savannah will ask about your fall, your recovery, and your comeback. Just be authentic, that is what people connect with. As Sarah sat in makeup, she watched monitors showing the live broadcast. The casual professionalism of the hosts reminded her why this show reached millions of viewers every morning. You ready for this? Asked the makeup artist, applying final touches. As ready as I will ever be. 20 minutes later, Sarah found herself sitting across from Savannah Guthrie in the bright lights of Studio 1A, with millions of viewers watching from their homes. Our next guest experienced one of the most dramatic falls from grace in the culinary world, followed by what many are calling an inspiring comeback. Savannah began. Sarah Mitchell was the chef-owner of Meridian, one of San Francisco's most acclaimed restaurants, when addiction and personal struggles led to a very public breakdown that ended her career. Now, 3 years later, she is slowly rebuilding her life and her reputation. Sarah, thank you for being here. Thank you for having me, Savannah. Let's start with the hardest part. 3 years ago, you had what can only be described as a public meltdown during restaurant service. Tell us about that night. Sarah took a deep breath, feeling the weight of millions of eyes on her. That night was the culmination of months of hiding my drinking problem and trying to maintain professional standards while my personal life was collapsing. I had been drinking during service, my judgment was impaired, and when the pressure became too much, I lost control completely. You screamed at staff, threw plates, and had to be physically removed from your own restaurant. Videos of the incident went viral. Yes. It was humiliating, devastating, and completely unprofessional. But more than that, it was the rock bottom I needed to hit to realize I needed help. But you did not get help right away. No, I did not. I was too proud, too ashamed, too deep in denial. My husband left and took our daughter with him, which sent me even deeper into addiction. I lost my restaurant, my family, my career, and eventually my home. Savannah leaned forward. What was it like being homeless after having been at the top of your profession? Humbling. Terrifying. But also, in a strange way, clarifying. When you have lost everything external, you are forced to confront who you actually are versus who you thought you were. What made you finally get sober? Sarah paused, remembering that moment of clarity 18 months ago. I was sleeping under a bridge in Sacramento, and I woke up one morning and realized that I had two choices: get help or die. My daughter deserved better than having a mother who chose alcohol over everything else in her life. And now you are cooking professionally again. How did that happen? Sarah smiled, thinking of that desperate afternoon at Silverstone Estate. I was hungry and desperate, and I heard about a catering emergency at a wedding venue. I offered to cook in exchange for a meal. The venue coordinator, Elena Rodriguez, took a chance on me, and that single opportunity changed everything. You cooked for a $500,000 wedding with 4 hours notice? I did. And for 6 hours, I remembered who I was before addiction took over my life. I remembered why I became a chef in the first place. Your daughter is 11 now. Have you been able to reconnect with her? Sarah's voice became softer. We are rebuilding our relationship slowly and carefully. She visited me last weekend, and we cooked together. It was the best day I have had in 3 years. What do you want people to know about addiction and recovery? That addiction does not discriminate. It can happen to anyone, regardless of success or status. But also that recovery is possible if you are willing to do the work and accept help. And that redemption is not just about returning to who you were, it is about becoming someone better. What is next for you? I am taking opportunities as they come, but carefully. I have learned that sustainable success requires balance, support, and honesty. I want to continue cooking, and I hope to inspire other people who are struggling to believe that their story is not over. As the interview concluded, Sarah felt simultaneously drained and exhilarated. She had told her truth on national television without making excuses or hiding from her mistakes. Her phone had been buzzing constantly during the interview, and when she checked it afterward, she found dozens of text messages. The one that mattered most was from Emma. "Mom, you were so brave. I am proud of you." But there were also messages from restaurant owners, publishers, and television producers. The Today Show appearance had amplified interest in her story exponentially. Elena called as Sarah was leaving the studio. "How do you feel?" Elena asked. "Like I just jumped out of an airplane," Sarah replied. "Terrifying and exhilarating at the same time." "Sarah, my phone has not stopped ringing. The response has been overwhelming. Are you ready for what comes next?" Sarah looked out at the busy New York street, watching people hurry past on their way to work and appointments. Normal people living normal lives, but also people who might be struggling with their own challenges and setbacks. "I think so," she said. "For the first time in 3 years, I think I am ready for whatever comes next." What came next would exceed even Sarah's wildest expectations, as her story of fall and redemption resonated with millions of people who saw their own struggles reflected in her journey. The culinary world was about to welcome back one of its most talented chefs, but this time, Sarah Mitchell would approach success with wisdom earned through loss and recovery. Within 48 hours of the Today Show interview, Sarah's life transformed completely. Her phone rang constantly with opportunities that 3 years ago would have seemed impossible: cookbook deals, restaurant partnerships, television appearances, and speaking engagements. But the call that changed everything came from an unexpected source. "Sarah Mitchell? This is Thomas Keller's office calling." Sarah nearly dropped her phone. Thomas Keller, the legendary chef behind the French Laundry and Per Se, winner of multiple James Beard Awards, and widely considered one of the greatest chefs in American history. Chef Keller watched your Today Show interview and would like to meet with you when he is in San Francisco next week. Would you be available? Sarah found herself speechless. Thomas Keller wanting to meet with her was like a baseball player being called up by Babe Ruth. Yes, of course. I would be honored. Elena was with Sarah when the call came, and she watched her friend's face cycle through disbelief, excitement, and terror. Thomas Keller wants to meet with me, Sarah said, staring at her phone as if it had just spoken in a foreign language. That is incredible. What do you think he wants? I have no idea. Maybe he wants to tell me I am a disgrace to the profession. Maybe he wants to lecture me about responsibility. Or maybe, Elena said gently, he wants to offer you an opportunity. The meeting was scheduled for the following Thursday at a small cafe in San Francisco's Mission District, neutral territory that would not attract attention from food media. Sarah spent the week alternating between excitement and panic, rehearsing conversations in her head and second-guessing every decision she had made since getting sober. Elena drove with her to San Francisco, mostly to prevent Sarah from turning around and driving home 3 times during the 2-hour journey. What if I say something stupid? Sarah asked for the 100th time as they parked near the cafe. Then you say something stupid. You are human, Sarah. Even Thomas Keller knows that. Sarah walked into the cafe 15 minutes early and immediately spotted the man she had admired from afar for her entire career. Thomas Keller sat at a corner table, reading a newspaper and drinking coffee, looking exactly like what he was, a master craftsman comfortable in his own expertise. Chef Keller? Sarah approached the table, her voice slightly shaky. He looked up and smiled, standing to shake her hand. Sarah, thank you for meeting me. Please, sit. For a moment, Sarah felt like she was in a dream. She had read every interview Thomas Keller had ever given, studied his techniques, and visited the French Laundry twice during Meridian's peak years. I watched your television interview, he said without preamble. It was honest. Honesty is rare in our industry. Thank you. I tried to be truthful about what happened. Good. Because I want to discuss something with you, and it requires complete honesty from both of us. Sarah nodded, not trusting herself to speak. I have been following your story since the Meridian incident. Not out of curiosity, but because I recognized something in your cooking that reminded me of myself at your age. You follow my story? The culinary world is smaller than people think. When someone with real talent falls as publicly as you did, we notice. But we also notice when they climb back up. Thomas leaned forward. I have a proposition for you. I am opening a new restaurant in Los Angeles next year. Not another per se or French Laundry, but something different. A place focused on second chances for ingredients, for techniques, and for people. Sarah felt her heart racing. What kind of second chances? Produce that is considered imperfect but still delicious. Forgotten techniques that deserve revival. And chefs who have made mistakes but still have something valuable to offer. The implications of what he was saying began to sink in. You want me to work in your restaurant? I want you to be the executive chef. Sarah stared at him, certain she had misheard. Executive chef? Of a Thomas Keller restaurant? Of a restaurant that bears my name but reflects your journey. Your experience with failure and recovery brings something to leadership that cannot be taught in culinary school. Sarah felt tears forming in her eyes. Chef Keller, I do not know what to say. Say you will think about it. But first, let me tell you what this would involve. For the next hour, Thomas outlined his vision for the restaurant, a fine dining establishment that would employ people in recovery, source ingredients from sustainable farms, and serve food that told stories of transformation and redemption. The menu would be entirely yours to create, he said. But the philosophy would need to align with second chances. Every dish should tell a story about taking something broken and making it beautiful. Why me? Sarah asked. There are dozens of talented chefs who have not had public breakdowns. Because those chefs have not learned what you have learned. They have not hit bottom and climbed back up. They have not had to rebuild their relationship with cooking from scratch. Thomas paused, studying Sarah's face. And because I believe that the best leaders are people who have been humbled by their own failures. You understand struggle in a way that will make you a better mentor to others who are struggling. Sarah thought about all the opportunities she had received since her Today Show appearance. Television shows, cookbook deals, consulting offers, all of them focused on her story rather than her cooking. This would be about the food, she said. Primarily about the food. Your story matters, but only as it informs your cooking and leadership. This is not about capitalizing on your redemption narrative, it is about using your experience to create something meaningful. Sarah felt a calm settling over her that she had not experienced since deciding to get sober. When would you need an answer? Take your time. This is not a decision to make lightly. You would be moving to Los Angeles, leading a team, representing my organization. Those are significant responsibilities. After Thomas left, Sarah sat in the cafe for another hour, staring at her coffee and trying to process what had just happened. Elena found her there, still in a state of shock. How did it go? Elena asked, sliding into the booth across from her. He offered me executive chef position in his new restaurant in Los Angeles. Elena's eyes widened. Sarah, that is incredible. What did you tell him? That I would think about it. Elena, this is bigger than anything I ever achieved before my breakdown. Executive chef at a Thomas Keller restaurant is like winning the lottery and being struck by lightning at the same time. But what if I am not ready? What if the pressure breaks me again? What if I fail and destroy not just my own reputation but his as well? Elena reached across the table and took Sarah's hands. Sarah, 3 months ago you were asking to cook for food. Today, Thomas Keller offered you one of the most prestigious positions in American cuisine. That did not happen by accident. What about Emma? If I move to Los Angeles, I will be even further from her. Los Angeles is closer to Portland than Napa is. And maybe David would consider moving closer if you had a stable, high-profile position. Sarah pulled out her phone and stared at David's contact information. I need to call them. This decision affects Emma too. That evening, Sarah video called David and Emma to tell them about the offer. Emma's reaction was immediate and enthusiastic. Mom, that is so cool. You would be the boss of a whole restaurant. David was more cautious. Sarah, that is an incredible opportunity. But are you sure you are ready for that level of responsibility? I do not know, Sarah said honestly. But I think that might be exactly why I should do it. 3 years ago, I thought I was ready for anything. Now I know how much I do not know. What does your gut tell you? David asked. Sarah thought about the question seriously. My gut tells me that this is why I went through everything I went through. Not to get back to where I was, but to become someone who could handle something like this. After they hung up, Sarah called Elena. I am going to say yes, she said. Are you sure? No. But I am surer about this than I have been about anything in 3 years. This feels like the next right step. The next morning, Sarah called Thomas Keller's office and accepted the position. As she hung up the phone, she felt a mixture of terror and exhilaration that reminded her why she had fallen in love with cooking in the first place. She was about to embark on the most challenging chapter of her career, but this time she would approach it with wisdom earned through loss, humility learned through failure, and strength built through recovery. The second act of Sarah Mitchell's life was about to begin, but not without one final test of everything she had learned about herself. 2 weeks before she was scheduled to move to Los Angeles to begin working with Thomas Keller's team, Sarah received a call that shattered her newfound confidence. "Sarah, this is David. We need to talk. Emma is in the hospital." Sarah's phone nearly, without hesitation, Sarah hung up and called Elena. "I need to get to Portland immediately. Emma is in the hospital." Elena found Sarah throwing clothes into a suitcase with shaking hands. "What about the restaurant meetings this week? You are supposed to finalize the menu concepts with Chef Keller's team." "I do not care about the restaurant," Sarah said, her voice fierce. "My daughter needs me." "Of course. Go. I will handle the meetings." "No," Sarah stopped packing. "Come with me. If I am going to build a new life, I need to make sure my priorities are right. Emma comes first, always." 6 hours later, Sarah was sitting in a hospital waiting room in Portland, still wearing the clothes she had thrown on that morning. David looked exhausted and grateful when he saw her. "How is she?" Sarah asked immediately. "Surgery went well. It was her appendix, but they caught it in time. She is going to be fine." Sarah felt her legs give out with relief. David caught her arm and helped her to a chair. "She asked for you during pre-op," David said quietly. "She wanted to make sure you were coming." "Of course I was coming. Nothing could have kept me away." When Emma woke up from surgery, groggy but smiling, the first thing she said was, "Mom, you came." "Wild horses could not have kept me away, baby," Sarah said, taking Emma's hand carefully. "But what about your new job? Dad said you had important meetings." Sarah looked at David, then back at Emma. "Sweetheart, you are more important than any job, any meeting, any opportunity in the world. That will never change." Over the next 3 days, as Sarah stayed by Emma's bedside, something shifted in their relationship. Emma began to truly believe that her mother's recovery was real, that Sarah's priorities had fundamentally changed. "Mom?" Emma said on the second night, when David had gone home to shower and sleep. "Yes, baby. I am proud of you for getting better. And I am proud that you chose me over your job." Sarah felt tears streaming down her face. "I will always choose you, Emma. Always." When Thomas Keller called to check on Sarah's status, she explained the situation honestly. "My daughter needed surgery. I have been with her in the hospital." "Of course you have," Thomas said without hesitation. "How is she?" "She is going to be fine. But Thomas, I need you to know something. If taking this position ever conflicts with being available for my daughter, she will come first." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Sarah, the fact that you would tell me that directly is exactly why you are the right person for this job. A chef who understands that food service is about caring for people will always be better than one who only cares about technique. So you are not reconsidering the offer?" "I am more confident in it than ever. Family first, always. The restaurant will be there when you are ready." After Emma was released from the hospital, David asked Sarah to stay for a few extra days to help with Emma's recovery. During those days, the three of them fell back into rhythms that reminded Sarah of their life before everything fell apart. "Sarah," David said one evening after Emma had gone to bed, "I have been thinking about something." "What?" "Emma and we have been talking about maybe moving closer to Los Angeles. If your new position works out, if you stay stable and successful, maybe we could be a family again. Not the same as before, but something new." Sarah stared at him in disbelief. "Are you serious? Emma misses you. And honestly, so do I. Not the person you were 3 years ago, but the person you are now. Recovery looks good on you, Sarah. David, I do not know what to say. Say you will keep being the person you are right now. Keep putting Emma first. Keep working your recovery. Keep being honest about your limitations. If you can do that, we can figure out the rest. That night, Sarah lay in the guest room of the house she had once shared with David and Emma, staring at the ceiling and marveling at how much her life had changed. A year ago, she had been sleeping under bridges. Now she had a prestigious job offer, her daughter's trust, and the possibility of rebuilding her family. But more than any external success, she had something she had never possessed before her fall, the knowledge that she could survive losing everything and still find a way back to what mattered. The next morning, as Sarah prepared to return to California to begin her new chapter, Emma hugged her tightly. "Mom, promise me something." "Anything, baby. Promise me that even when you are a famous chef again, you will still call me every day." "I promise." "And Emma?" "I promise something else too." "What?" "I promise that being your mom will always be more important to me than being a chef. Always." As Sarah drove back to California, she felt something she had never experienced before, complete alignment between who she was and who she was becoming. The scared, broken woman who had asked to cook for food 6 months ago was still part of her, but so was the confident chef who had just accepted one of the most prestigious positions in American cuisine. And most importantly, she was a mother who had learned that true success meant being present for the people who mattered most. The second act of Sarah Mitchell's life was beginning, built on a foundation of recovery, redemption, and the unshakable knowledge that she had found her way back to what truly mattered. 6 months later, Sarah stood in the gleaming kitchen of Revive, Thomas Keller's newest restaurant in Los Angeles, putting the finishing touches on the menu for their opening night. The dining room beyond the kitchen doors buzzed with anticipation. Food critics, celebrities, industry professionals, and investors had all come to witness what many were calling the most anticipated restaurant opening of the year. But Sarah was not thinking about the critics or the pressure. She was focused on the small framed photo she had placed next to her prep station, Emma smiling in her soccer uniform, taken just last week during Sarah's visit to Portland. "Chef, 5 minutes to first seating," called Marcus, her new sous chef, a talented young cook who, like several members of her team, was in recovery from addiction. "Thank you, Marcus. How are we looking on apps?" "Perfect timing across all stations. The team is ready." Sarah looked around her kitchen with pride. In 6 months, she had built something unprecedented, a fine dining kitchen staffed primarily by people who had been written off by society. Former addicts, ex-convicts, homeless individuals, all of them united by exceptional talent and a commitment to second chances. The menu she had created reflected this philosophy. Every dish told a story of transformation, forgotten vegetables featuring imperfect produce transformed into elegant compositions, second harvest using traditionally discarded parts of ingredients, Phoenix Rising, a dessert that literally rose from seemingly burnt components to reveal hidden beauty. Elena had flown down from Napa for opening night, and she watched from the pass as Sarah coordinated her team with the calm authority of someone who had learned to lead through service rather than ego. "Behind you, chef," called Maria, the same assistant who had worked with Sarah on her early catering jobs. Sarah had convinced her entire original team to relocate to Los Angeles, offering them positions in what had become not just a restaurant, but a model for rehabilitation through culinary arts. "First order's up," Sarah announced, and the kitchen moved like a choreographed dance. The early reviews of service were extraordinary. Food critics who had come expecting either disaster or a publicity stunt found themselves experiencing something profound, food that was technically flawless but emotionally resonant in ways they had never encountered. "Chef," Marcus approached during a brief lull, "there is someone here who wants to see you." "I am not doing press during service," Sarah said without looking up from her plating. "It is not press. It is your family." Sarah's head snapped up. Through the kitchen window, she could see David and Emma sitting at a corner table, both dressed up and beaming with pride. They flew down for opening night, Elena said, appearing at Sarah's elbow. David called me yesterday to arrange it. Surprise. Sarah felt tears welling up. They are here. They are here because they believe in you. Because you have proven that you can balance success with being present for them. Sarah wiped her hands and walked quickly to the dining room. Emma jumped up when she saw her mother approaching. Mom, this place is so fancy. And everyone is talking about how amazing the food is. Sarah knelt down to hug her daughter, not caring that she was wearing chef's whites in the middle of the dining room. You came all the way here for opening night? We would not have missed it, David said, standing to embrace Sarah. We are so proud of you. Dad showed me the article in the newspaper, Emma said excitedly. It said you are one of the most important chefs in America now. The most important thing I am is your mom, Sarah said, meaning every word. I know. That is why I am extra proud. Sarah returned to the kitchen with renewed energy, cooking the rest of service with the knowledge that her daughter was watching her succeed in a way that honored everything she had learned about what truly mattered. As the last dessert course left the kitchen, Thomas Keller appeared at Sarah's station. How does it feel? He asked. Like the most important thing I have ever done, Sarah replied. And also like it is just the beginning. The reviews are already coming in online. Los Angeles Times is calling it transcendent. Food and Wine says it is the future of fine dining with conscience. Sarah nodded, but her attention was drawn to Marcus cleaning his station with the same care she had taught him to put into every dish. Thomas, the success that matters most is not in the reviews. What do you mean? Marcus has been sober for 8 months. Maria is saving money to bring her children to Los Angeles. David, our prep cook, just got his own apartment for the first time in 3 years. That is the success that counts. Thomas smiled. This is exactly why I knew you were the right choice. As the evening wound down and the last customers left, Sarah gathered her team in the kitchen. Tonight was not just our opening night, she told them. Tonight was proof that second chances are not just about getting back to where you were, they are about becoming something better than you ever imagined possible. The team applauded, but Sarah was not finished. 6 months ago, most of us thought our best days were behind us. Tonight, we proved that our best days are just beginning. Later, as Sarah sat with David and Emma at the empty restaurant, Emma asked the question that had been on her mind all evening. Mom, are you happy now? Sarah considered the question seriously. I am content, baby. Which is better than happy. Happy comes and goes, but contentment, knowing who you are and being proud of how you treat people, that lasts. Will you move back to Portland now that your restaurant is successful? Sarah and David exchanged glances. They had been discussing this possibility for weeks. Actually, David said, Emma and I have been thinking about moving here. If your mom continues doing well, we thought we might try being a family again. Emma's eyes went wide. Really? We could all live in the same city? If that is what you want, Sarah said carefully. But only if you are sure. I never want you to feel pressured to forgive me or include me just because I got my career back. Emma was quiet for a moment, then looked directly at her mother. Mom, I already forgave you. I forgave you when you stayed in the hospital with me instead of going to your important meetings. I want to be a family again. Sarah felt tears streaming down her face. Are you sure? I am sure. But I have one condition. Anything. You have to teach me how to cook like a real chef. Not just easy stuff, the hard stuff too. Sarah laughed through her tears. Deal. But you have to promise me something too. What? Promise me that you will always tell me if I start putting work before family again. Promise me you will keep me honest. I promise." As they sat in the quiet restaurant surrounded by the remnants of the most successful evening of Sarah's career, she realized that she had finally found what she had been searching for without knowing it, the ability to be excellent at her work while remaining present for the people she loved. The broken chef who had lost everything 3 years ago was gone, replaced by someone stronger, wiser, and more grateful than she had ever been during her first success. Sarah Mitchell had not just gotten her life back, she had built a better one. 1 year later, Sarah stood on the stage of the James Beard Awards ceremony in Chicago, holding the medallion for Outstanding Chef, the most prestigious honor in American cuisine. The applause from the audience of her peers was thunderous, but Sarah's eyes were fixed on one table in the front row where Emma sat next to David, both of them beaming with pride. "This award belongs to everyone who believed in second chances," Sarah said into the microphone, her voice steady despite the emotion she felt. "To my team at Revive, who prove every day that excellence and redemption can coexist. To my daughter Emma, who taught me that forgiveness is not about forgetting the past, but about believing in the future. And to everyone who is struggling right now, thinking their story is over, it is not. It is just waiting for you to write the next chapter." The standing ovation that followed was not just for Sarah's culinary achievements, but for the journey she represented. In the years since Revive opened, the restaurant had become more than a dining destination, it had become a symbol of what was possible when talent met second chances. But Sarah's greatest achievement was not the award in her hands or the restaurant that had already been booked solid for the next 6 months. It was the life she had built that allowed her to be fully present for moments like this. After the ceremony, as photographers captured images of Sarah with her award, Emma pushed through the crowd to reach her mother. "Mom, you won. You actually won." Sarah knelt down to Emma's level, not caring about her elegant dress or the cameras flashing around them. "We won, baby. This belongs to our whole family." David joined them, wrapping both Sarah and Emma in a hug. 6 months earlier, he and Emma had moved to Los Angeles, and they were slowly rebuilding their family in a new configuration, not the same as before, but something stronger because it was built on honesty, recovery, and mutual respect. "I am so proud of you," David whispered in Sarah's ear. "Not just for tonight, but for who you have become." Elena appeared at Sarah's side, holding her own glass of champagne and grinning widely. "So, Outstanding Chef. How does it feel to be officially recognized as one of the best in the country?" "Like the beginning, not the end," Sarah replied. "I have so much more I want to do." "Speaking of which," Elena said, "I have news. The James Beard Foundation wants to partner with Revive to create a national program for culinary recovery. They want to replicate your model in other cities." Sarah looked at Elena in amazement. "A national program? Think about it, Revive kitchens in New York, Chicago, San Francisco. Training programs for people in recovery, job placement services, mentorship networks. You could impact thousands of lives. That is incredible, but also terrifying. I am barely managing one restaurant." Emma tugged on Sarah's dress. "Mom, what is a national program?" Sarah picked up her daughter, balancing her on one hip while holding her James Beard Award in the other hand. "It means helping people in other cities the way we help people in Los Angeles. People who made mistakes but want to do better. Like you did? Like I did." Emma considered this seriously. "I think you should do it. You are good at helping people." Later that evening, after the after-parties and celebrations had ended, Sarah found herself sitting on the balcony of their hotel room with David and Emma, all three of them still in their formal clothes but barefoot and relaxed. "Emma is right, you know," David said quietly. "You should consider the national program. It feels too big. What if I am not ready for that level of responsibility?" "Sarah, You were not ready to cook for a $500,000 wedding with 4 hours notice, but you did it. You were not ready to be executive chef at a Thomas Keller restaurant, but you crushed it. You were not ready to win a James Beard Award, but here we are. Sarah looked at the medallion in her hands, still hardly believing it was real. Maybe being ready is not the point, she said slowly. Maybe the point is being willing to try, and having people who will catch you if you fall. Will you really help people in other cities, Mom? Emma asked sleepily. If I do it, it will be because I want to show them what you showed me. What did I show you? That love does not give up on people, even when they give up on themselves. Emma smiled and curled up against Sarah's side. I never gave up on you, Mom. Even when you were sick. Sarah felt tears welling up again, happy tears this time, the kind that came from gratitude rather than grief. I know, baby. That is what saved me. As the three of them sat together on the balcony, looking out at the Chicago skyline, Sarah reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. The broken woman who had asked to cook for food 18 months ago felt like a different person entirely, yet Sarah knew that every step of that journey, the addiction, the loss, the recovery, the slow rebuilding, had been necessary to become who she was now. Her phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Chef, saw the awards ceremony on TV. The whole team is so proud. Can't wait to see you Monday. Sarah smiled, thinking about her kitchen family back in Los Angeles. They were probably celebrating at some dive bar, sharing stories and planning how they would spend the extra business the James Beard Award would surely bring. Another text came in, this one from a number she did not recognize. Ms. Mitchell, I saw your story online. I am a chef in recovery and I have been sober for 90 days. Is there any way I could work at Revive? I want to learn from someone who understands. Thank you for showing us it is possible. Sarah showed the message to David. This is why I have to do the national program. There are people everywhere who need to see that comeback is possible. Then we will figure it out together, David said. As a family. 6 months later, Sarah stood in the kitchen of Revive Chicago, the second location in what would become a national network of restaurants dedicated to second chances. Emma was at a prep station nearby, carefully julienning vegetables under the watchful eye of Marcus, who had become head chef of the Los Angeles location when Sarah moved into her role as director of the entire program. Mom, look. Perfect matchsticks. Emma called out proudly. Beautiful work, sweetheart. Your knife skills are getting really good. Emma had become the unofficial mascot of the Revive program, spending afternoons after school in whatever kitchen Sarah was working in, learning not just cooking techniques but the values that made the restaurant special: patience, precision, and belief in human potential. Chef Sarah called one of the new cooks, a young woman named Maria who had been in recovery for 6 months. The dinner rush is about to start. Are you ready? Sarah looked around the bustling kitchen, formerly homeless individuals working alongside culinary school graduates, people in recovery mentoring others who were just beginning their journeys, a community built around the simple belief that everyone deserved a second chance. I am ready, Sarah said, tying her apron. Let us show Chicago what redemption tastes like. As service began and the kitchen filled with the familiar symphony of professional cooking, Sarah felt the deep satisfaction that came from knowing she had found her true calling. Not just as a chef, but as someone who could take broken things, people, ingredients, situations, and transform them into something beautiful. Emma watched from her corner station, learning not just how to cook, but how to lead with compassion, how to build community through service, and how to turn personal struggles into strength that could help others. The story that had begun with a desperate woman asking to cook for food had become something none of them could have imagined, a national movement proving that second chances were not just possible, but transformative for everyone involved. And at the center of it all was Sarah Mitchell, not the perfect chef she had once tried to be, but the authentic leader she had become through failure, recovery, and the unwavering love of a daughter who never stopped believing in her mother's ability to rise again. As the evening service reached its peak and the kitchen hummed with the energy of people doing work they loved, Sarah paused for just a moment to appreciate the miracle of ordinary moments made extraordinary by gratitude, purpose, and the knowledge that redemption was not just a destination, but a daily choice to keep becoming better. The woman who had once lost everything had not just gotten her life back, she had created something far more valuable, a legacy of hope that would continue long after the last plate was served.